What's going on, guys? Marcus Havoc here, and doing a quick LFR preview on several of the DPS classes. They just released LFR on beta for the first three bosses of Emerald Nightmare, and I came here to show you guys Nithendra, the first boss. I'm not going to go over the actual boss fight, but what I am going to do is show you the classes that I'm playing and kind of how they're feeling, just a first look as to how they look in a somewhat raid setting. I know LFR isn't the best raid setting, but the first class that I wanted to start off with was the Elemental Shaman. And the reason why is because I played an Elemental Shaman and Hellfire Citadel. So you look over my talents, I went with Guidance, Echo of the Elements, Elemental Fusion, Elemental Mastery, and Ascendance. I gave a quick look there. Those are just simple single target talents for the Elemental Shaman. Right now I'm pulling trash, as you can see, and I'm just trying to build up my Maelstrom, so I start the fight out with 100 Maelstrom. Maelstrom's the new resource for Elemental Shamans. It works kind of like Rage, except you can build it several different ways, and there's several different little strategies that you can use to build it to do your abilities with. So we'll go ahead and clear trash here. As you see, I'm just building it up, and you see the marker there that on the weak aura that I've got full Maelstrom, but I'm just trying to keep it full. So that way I'll always have stuff to do. The two abilities that you use Maelstrom on are Flame Shock and Earth Shock. Flame Shock is your dot that helps you with Lava Surge procs, and Earth Shock is a nice big heavy hitting ability. I'm going to start the fight out by launching my Fire Elemental Totem, just because that's just the biggest cooldown you have, the biggest one that I chose. I didn't choose the Storm Elemental Totem. And I'll also be popping Ascendance and Elemental Mastery right off the bat. So you'll see me right there, boom, Elemental Mastery and Ascendance off the bat. I get some Maelstrom, and I start launching Earth Shock and Flame Shock. And now I'm just spamming Lava Burst, which, by the way, generates Maelstrom. So keep an eye out when you're spamming Ascendance. As you can see, Earth Shock just procced at 100 Maelstrom. You can use Earth Shock at 10 or 100 Maelstrom. So I'm trying to move avoid damage as best as I can, even though I'm tunneling really hard to try and see how much damage I can actually do. So yeah, now I'm just building up Maelstrom. The spec is a little bit different than it was in 6.2 Hellfire Citadel. Because of the way Maelstrom works, you're no longer a cooldown based spec. You're more of a spec based off building and spending at the right moments. The one key thing that I learned about Elemental Shamans is, you don't really have Spirit Walker's Grace. So you have to find clever ways to keep your Maelstrom up, so that way if you do have to move, you can still hit the boss with Earth Shock, which is an instant cast ability that costs Maelstrom. Right here, this is a really good example of building up too much Maelstrom. I capped my Maelstrom and then finally got an Earth Shock off. That's just me being, very inexperienced with the new spec. Been playing it for a grand total of 5 minutes. But as you can see, it's a challenging spec. Well, it's not challenging overall, but it's more challenging than it was in Hellfire Citadel, because that Maelstrom mechanic provides a really interesting way to time your abilities. You now have to kind of think as an Elemental Shaman and not just have weak auras or cooldown bars telling you, hey, your Flame Shock's now on off cooldown, your Lava Burst is off cooldown, and your Earth Shock is proccing because you have 4-piece. So what's really interesting with it is, like I said, the whole moving and casting thing. I tried my best to keep my Maelstrom up, but not capping it. Sometimes I capped it, sometimes I didn't. And also keeping Flame Shock up, because you don't need Maelstrom to cast Flame Shock. You need, but you can have up to 20, which ups its dot duration. So you can always have Flame Shock on a target whether you have Maelstrom or not, but it's actually good to burn a little Maelstrom just to keep it up longer so you can save up some Maelstrom. Overall, I find the spec to be very fun. I think it's better than it was in its 6.2 iteration. As you can see, I have probably 2/3 of the action buttons that I did previously on my previous Elemental Shaman, which I find to be very enjoyable. And I'm having a tough transitioning from having all these buttons and working against your action bars, so now you're working against the boss. I take a lot of unnecessary damage in this encounter, mostly because I'm trying to do my best with the rotation. But they want you to fight the bosses now, so they've pruned all these abilities. So in retrospect, besides my cooldowns, I only hit 3 or 4 buttons the entire time. Didn't use Thunderstorm, didn't use Chain Lightning. I didn't use my artifact ability as much as I should have. Stormkeeper, it's a 1-minute cooldown that that ups the damage of your Chain Lightning and Lightning Bolt. I wish I had, I just wasn't paying attention to it. You know, I wish I had weak auras, but we have to use the default UI in this situation. But I found the spec to be fun for this short little single target fight that I did in LFR. I found that there's still some utility there with Ancestral Guidance, especially with a high damage output fight like this one. I do miss having Shamanistic Rage, even though you do have Astral Shift, even though that's a talent. But I think the overall rotation has made it a lot more of a game. You're playing a game with your Maelstrom. You're playing a game with your resource to figure out what to do next, and you have to make smart decisions. Much like any other class that has, you know, energy or rage, you can't make a stupid decision with it, and you can't cap it, because if you cap it, you're gimping your DPS. Surprisingly, in this fight, I did pretty well. I asked somebody to link the meters towards the end of this fight. I was third overall with 120k DPS, and this is all in level 110 PvP gear, like 810 PvP gear that they give you at the start of you know, the Betamax PvP zone. So overall, I found that that the spec is improved. It's an improved spec. It's fun. I'm gonna try it out on a multi-target fight. I think Aerithal has a lot of multi-targets, so I can test out how Chain Lightning works and how all that plays out. But overall, I'm satisfied with the Elemental Shaman. I think it's fun. I'm probably not going to play it in Legion, but it's definitely going to be a class that I'll probably fiddle around with in like Mythic Dungeons or something. It's a fun class. The Maelstrom mechanic, I think, is the best thing that's ever happened to it. So that's it for me on this one, guys. Marcus Havoc here. I'll be doing Demon Hunter, Marksmanship Hunter, and even Prot Warrior, just to give you guys a feel of how they're playing in LFR Beta. So if you like the video, like, comment, and subscribe, and stay tuned for Legion.